This is a good business topic. When is the right time to consider a virtual assistant? When I'm thinking about everything that has been and what I have projected to be, and having the appropriate resources in place, because business growth is about having the right people in the right positions, doing the right things at the right times for the right reasons, thus producing the right results. So when you're making an assessment on when it's the time to bring on that virtual assistant, I easily have 40 hours of work, productive shit that I need to get done. So it's not a question. So it's when I think about all of the time that I spend doing certain things. So today I was preparing for a client meeting, going into QuickBooks, updating multiple spreadsheets. There's a lot of administrative prep stuff that ensures that the hour that I'm with each of my clients is productive towards closing the gap and the goals and objectives that they have set for their business.
Most definitely. I think, when you bring up the idea of when's the right time to bring on a VA, I thought about initially when is the right time to bring on an assistant or to bring on staff, to even broaden that thing. Because, my background is more so coming from being in sales and being a solopreneur, where I'm out here, I'm selling the thing for the company, and I'm making us both a bunch of money. But the question for many solo entrepreneurs who, they need to turn their hustle into a business, that's exactly what you do and what you teach. It's like, when is the right time for me to start getting people to come do things? Traditionally, I've always thought when you can find someone to do something 80% as well as you can, let them take that task on and move on to the thing that only you do best, so you can start expanding the role. What's kind of your view on that, or those numbers? I know that's Pareto's law. It shows up everywhere.
So with each of my clients, what I'm coaching them to is we're working to fire you from your position.
Woo! So, say that again.
Like, quite literally, like, we are working to fire you. So in order for us to do that, we have to have the resources in place for that to happen. Earl, I take tremendous pride in the fact that, my clients that actually are doing the things, they take vacations. And we know a lot of entrepreneurs that can't even take a day off without deep concerns of what that means for their business. And I'm talking about business that are actually producing. Like, anybody can call themselves a business owner by registering an LLC, but I'm talking about businesses that are actually producing revenue and paying taxes and doing all of those things, employing people.
Most definitely, man. And, I think we've talked about this before in the past. It's like maybe 60% of that is mindset and 40% of it is systems, where your biggest struggle, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I see it all the time. When I'm talking to these business owners, I want to help them with their taxes. I want to help increase their EBITDA. I want to help them create a plan to keep key employees happy and keep top talent there. So we're doing this. We're going through the high-level stuff, which they should be there for. And then I'm like, okay, cool. So what does the next year week look like? So I can do this and this and this. Well, I'm tied into this, and I like to be around the front desk, and I like to. Whoa! Are you the CEO and the founder, or do you work the front desk? Do you work the mailroom? Why are you doing these tasks that pay $12, $15, $17 an hour when you're running a multi-million-dollar company? It's crazy, that mental cage that they've built for themselves, even when they're working with a business coach like yourself, teaching them how to implement systems so they can break away, but then they still haven't broke away here.
And that's, to your point, the mindset piece is so critical. One of the eye openers for my clients is what I refer to as the dialogue process. In other words, we are documenting the day in the life of activities so that we then can discern those that only they can do versus those that can be delegated.
Right.
Through that analysis, it's like, holy shit. So, example, one of my clients would, with their employee, my client would be driving out to the job site. And we got all of these estimates that are backing up. We got certain administrative things that are just falling wayside because there's just no time to get these things done. We made the adjustment for the employee to drive instead of the client. All of those hours during the week that was spent behind the steering wheel is now in the passenger seat getting administrative things that need to happen that can only happen at the direction and drive of the client. Now they have the time to do those things. That's mindset.
So are you trying to tell me that you can't do everything all the time? Sounds like that's what you're trying to tell me. So I, as a business owner, I can't do all the things and be on top of every single project. That's crazy.
Oh, man. No, but it's so hard for them to let go of the control that they have in doing it themselves. It's a fear, and it's also, so you got like helicopter parents that,
yes,
well, you got helicopter business because the business is like they baby. You know what I mean? My business is baby. You know,
they gave life to it. It has a social security number. That's their kid. That's their kid.
So,
I saw a quote the other day in one of the groups that I'm in. It's a John C. Maxwell speaking mentorship type of thing. I keep hopscotching on if I'm going to become a John C. Maxwell speaker or not. Love the books, love the man. I don't know if I need to necessarily, hang my hat in the organization, but I digress. The quote was, it was basically saying micromanagement, and it was written as a definition. And it's like the work you do to run away amazing talent, leaving your business gutted because of ego, fear, and lack of professionalism. Woo! I was like, golly, leaving your business gutted.
No, it's real. I mean, and again, it comes from a place of just a lack of intention, where with a lot of business owners, when they're first getting started, I remember when I first, all right, so when I got here to the Springs, and I had to really figure some shit out. Big piece of that was really coming to grips with the value and requirement to build relationships. I've always considered myself to be an introvert, believe it or not. But when I'm in my bag, in other words, when I was working for somebody, when I show up in whatever title that I showed up under, all of the charisma and the competence and connection and all of that is going to be there because that's a function of the gig. But myself personally, I much rather, watch, observe, play the cut, mind my own business, stay out of others. That's just naturally who I am. Well, excuse me. That is naturally who I have been.
Oh, words are important. That's a good catch.
100%. When I got here to the Springs, it was like the online thing is like, that's like a hit and miss type of thing until you like really dial it in. So I'm like, all right. I literally went on a meetup app and I found I was just looking for networking groups here in the Springs.
Mm-hmm.
I found 4BR And from there, the journey just kind of
It
began
just
of building relationships. And I remember like really having this feeling because when I consulted for the firms that I worked for, like I was in and out of airports every week, in and out of rental cars, hotels, different pockets of the country, flying in suits and my suitcase, and like just like traveling around the doing all of the consulting stuff and like driving, bringing the value to the clients. And
mm-hmm.
I knew the value because each week, you know, I would present them with an invoice for anywhere between $17,000 to $25,000 for the 40 hours that they spent with me. So it was no question when I got here to the Springs on like the value that I bring, but how do you communicate that? How do you turn it into a client base? Because in the firm, as the consultant, I was able to just come in and all of that legwork, all of that sales legwork was already done. So I could come in as the consultant and deliver my value piece. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, it would be when I got here to the spring, it would like I know that I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like for real. Like I really do this.
Inside and out.
And like I can't even really talk to real business. Like it would just be nice to just be able to just talk. I remember feeling that when I first got here.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 2 years ago. I'm saying that to say a lot of business owners go through that of, man, it would just be nice to, like, I know people love what I do or provide. And like, if they just give me a shot, I change it. Like, I know it. And then all of a sudden it starts to catch traction. And then as it catches traction, all of that dopamine is hitting. Because it's like, man, I went from wanting to talk to somebody to
having clients, to having momentum,
they convert
having referrals.
The revenue is hitting the bank account. All right, now the phone is ringing a lot. So it done went from, man, it'd be nice to talk to folks to, man, this phone don't never stop ringing, bro. Like, Jesus Christ, it's like prison. You know what I mean? Like it won't stop. Or it's like they have those peaks of the phone ringing real crazy and things looking great, and they staff up accordingly, but they never planned to staff up to begin with. So they hire somebody and they just hope that the person is going to be the perfect fit. And they make all of these excuses when the employee doesn't perform. Although they never got any expectation. They were just expected to be perfect. You're supposed to know what I'm thinking. You're supposed to know what I'm paying you to do. You're supposed to just know. You're supposed to just do it. The way that I do it too. Even though I never told you how to do it.
That sounds like a great recipe for success. You know, I'm being sarcastic, clearly. It's so interesting when we talk about businesses here, how much it parallels, romantic partnerships or even parenthood. You know, it's kind of crazy. Like when you think about it, the word partner and the word parent are just a couple letters off, man. Right. So your communication style and upbringing your employees, it parallels upbringing a kid. Or even, what you're trying to build with your significant other.
We're managing human enterprise. So yes, it absolutely is the same thing. A lot of relationships end up falling to the wayside because the two, they either never established a healthy communicational foundation to begin with, or things happen that ended up breaking up that communication, and now we off to the races of so the same thing applies in business, where like you go through the interview process And the person on the other side is like, they are selling them their best self, right? So that's the best representation that you're going to get during that time. But then they start working. The employees like drinking water through a fire hose.
Yep.
Trying to process all of this information, and they expected to just retain it all. Because I told you, I told you that already. So now you're supposed to just know it and do it because I told you. So now you're supposed to know it and do it because I told you. And that kind of cycle happens, and now they're not talking to each other. It's not communication. It's the business owner talking at the employee, and the employee taking as much of what they can take and doing the best that they can, and resentment being formed on both sides.
Yeah, man, that's a very collusive relationship where, if we brought a communication major on here, they would talk about the two different parties both speaking through a void of noise. So the message isn't really being heard clearly by either party. The party not hearing the message is going to form their own opinions and feelings based on a distorted message and send back a message that will also be distorted. So we got to smack the noise out of here and simplify things. I've definitely been guilty of that, where I just didn't understand, especially in my network marketing journey. I didn't understand how someone's like, yeah, I'm broke. I'll do anything to make some more money. Cool. This is what we're doing. Let me plug you in. This is how it works. And this is what we do. So I'm like, yeah, make a list of 250 people and let's just run through them 5 at a time every day. And they're like, what? They're like, yep, that's what we do. And they're just like, but what? And I'm like, that's what I did. You said you wanted my level of success. So yeah, I did that. I started showing, 5 people a day the opportunity. And I made sure to read for 30 minutes every day. And then, you make sure to work out, get on the team calls, and go to all the trainings.
Right.
And I wanted this person to want it as badly as I did. And, being a more traditional business owner now, it would be insane for me to expect my employee to, one, be more locked in on a task than I am, or than the position that I put them in. That's ludicrous. The person that doesn't have any equity in my business is going to want it more than I do. That's out of control.
I don't know. But that is a function of culture within the organization, because I have met people that I was surprised that they didn't have owner stake in the business the way that they represented the brand. So the culture within the company can create that when it's intentionally set as such, right? Where there's a ownership mentality. And like when we talk about developing a team, compliance is incredible. In other words, it is great for us to give an employee a standard operating procedure and a checklist, and they get it done the way that it's expected to get done. That's great. Now, what's the icing on the cake is when that SOP has clearly articulated the why behind the what's in the hows. So now we're evolving from compliance to ownership of intent, which translates to the employee coming to the owner and saying, look, boss. So I was checking out the SOP and the checklist, and I get the intent. But working at this spot, we did X, Y, and Z. And not only did we achieve this intent, but we also got X, Y, and Z, boom, boom, boom. And then the owner is like, oh, shit, I wouldn't have thought about that. So I love that. Let's try it out and see what it does. Like that's a great fucking idea. Let's do it. That's ownership. The fact that so many business owners have to fight just to get compliance is what creates that endless cycle of insanity, of just continuing to be disappointed in the output of their teams, as opposed to having process that creates the opportunity for compliance and accompanying that with the appropriate culture drives ownership, which produces different types of outcomes in perpetuity.
Yeah, I would like to think that's what drives hyper growth. With all my experience in sales, once I locked into each different company and I decided, okay, I want to be the number one producer in the country. I'm all in on this. I'm acting like I own the company. And I'm thinking about ways I can market this on top of the checks that I'm getting. And I'm reaching out to ownership and saying, hey, if I start bringing my own customer flow in, what difference can we make on my commission? Since it's not coming on your marketing dollars, it's coming on mine. Have you guys ever thought about this, and this? You know, I'm just thinking of different ways that I can win even more and I can build this money up, because I've always just looked at money as a tool. It's a source of energy. And I have a whole lot of people that need to be booted up. I have a big, beautiful family. You know, I've always been around athletics, helping kids out, and now helping adults with their financial health journey and, you know, being able to build wealth off the back of the IRS. I'm like, it takes a certain amount of money to be able to get the reach that I want to have, to be able to help the amount of people I want to help so I can make the impact that I want to make. And that all came from wanting to use money the right way. And that's what drove me to in those cultures where I saw people making the money I want to make. I'm like, wait, we work 35 hours a week here, and the gal in the cubicle across from me, she's making $250,000 a year. Yes, son, let me get some of that. Whatever it takes to get there. You know, I'm sending memos to the VIP of sales that's 2 states away. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you looked at this, but if you tweak this thing on the comp plan, the company would make more, and all of the producers would make more too. So it's funny once you get locked in on something, but I've definitely been in work cultures where it was futile to have an ownership mentality, because regardless of what I did, it was clear that their goal was to pay the sales force the least and put the most money back into the owner's pocket, even though we're keeping the lights on. So it was an interesting journey, man, like being in different telecom companies, different insurance companies. Like, I think I worked for every telecom company that we have in this city, you know. And it's interesting how the technology is very similar. It's not a huge difference between whatever company. But the leadership and the communication, night and day between different organizations.
So speaking
like
of
you said, why, how, what?
There you go. So, but speaking of the leadership and communication piece, you mentioned earlier the John C. Maxwell speaking deal. If you were to commit to that, what would you intend to get out of it?
I think the cross-branding is awesome because, you know, if anyone who's anyone in an influential space knows who John C. Maxwell is at this point. I mean, the thing that I laugh about, he's written so many volumes of books. When he's referencing another source in one of his books, is one of his books. I was just reading, you know, The High Road to Leadership. That has to be one of my favorite books. It's one of his newest ones where he's really holding people to the grill, in a way where he's kind of talking about politics, where he's saying, if you are a polarizer of people, you are not a leader. You may be influential, you may have money, you may have good ideas, but you are not a leader, because a leader brings people together and galvanizes, not polarizes. Man, I was reading that like I was watching a rap battle. I was like, woo! John DeMarco, get him, John. Get him, John. DeMarco, like, John is eating these dudes up. I know they're mad reading it because it's irrefutable what he's saying.
The Don DeMarco drop is official.
It's official. It's the slow it down. He just dissed you type of thing coming from John C. Maxwell. So I would look at it as an avenue to get to different platforms and to get to different people, possibly people that think differently than I do, that have a different faith base than I do. Huh?
So why you ain't doing it?
Well, I've realized if I say yes to everything, my yes is worthless.
You say.
Right now,
that's a huge return. So what priorities supersede that?
Yeah, so it's like it's cool when I get opportunities to jump on other platforms, but what if I just linked up with one of the best business coaches in the city, started a podcast and started teaching people how money really worked, how taxes really work, and how assets really grow? What if I built a platform along with someone instead of trying to get a seat at somebody else's table? We built a whole cafeteria.
My man.
So the asset class, I'm so excited to do it because we're going to get to dial in on so many different things, and there's so many parallels between the business journey and the wealth journey. Earlier we were talking about the mindset it takes to actually be a business owner, where you're the business owner investor. And I wish I had the slide up right now to share it, the Robert Kiyosaki 4 quadrants. Because for people to move from that self-employed to the business to the investor, that hop over that line, it takes a huge mental shift if you weren't brought up with that type of teaching. And, that starts to get us in the spirals of talking about the creature from Jekyll Isle and how the Board of Education was created by the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and, the 11 wealthiest families in the United States. And we can go down that wormhole, and I know that we will because I know you. And I know that we will. But, it parallels on the financial asset side when I'm teaching people how to use trust and build real wealth. So let's say I'm sitting down with a business owner. They have a mom and pop shop, and they're doing, maybe $700,000 a year in revenue. They have a paid off house. They've been living frugally, and, they have a brokerage account, and they're like, okay, what's my next step? I have this stuff. I have money here, here, and here. I got a cash value life insurance that I got when I was 30. It has $300,000 in it now. How do I protect this stuff? I heard I could just get on Google and I could get a trust for 200 or 300. And it's well, let me ask you this question. If you had the option to own all of your assets privately or publicly, which one would you choose? I have yet to have anyone say publicly. I've had someone's daughter say publicly, so then they could, we're rich. I'm trying to blow up on TikTok, Dad. Excluding the daughter that wants to be a TikTok star. Everyone will want to have that wealth privately because we want to protect from debtors. We want to protect from false creditors. With artificial intelligence and the internet, it's crazy. I can't tell you how many clients I've had that are real estate investors. They inherited some properties from their grandparents and their parents, and they're like, hey, we have these properties, and, we really need a trust because someone looked us up. They Googled us. They saw the state information on us, saw that we had 10 properties. They went to one of those properties, slipped on the ice, and hurt themselves, and now they're suing us for $350,000, and they know that we have $350,000 in equity in that home. So they're forcing us. They know we have the money. And you never know in those situations what a judge had for breakfast that day. If he or she had an argument with their significant other the night before, you know, if a homeless man rubbed grease on their leg right before they got into the municipal building, you have no idea what type of temperament they're in, and you're allowing your entire financial destiny to go to a judge. So it's like, look, instead of spending $300, let's get you a real trust system. Let's make this thing completely private, where it's not even disclosed to the state. We get the assets in there. And then here's the part where I said it parallels the most to what you just said when we were talking about the mindset of allowing a business to run and for the business owner to be fired. They no longer own any of those assets. And it's like heartbreak and grief in their eyes when I'm like, you're no longer going to own any of these assets. We've created a trust that is considered a person. It's not a natural person, so it can't vote, but it has a social security number. It can pay taxes. It can build credit. It can write a book. It can buy assets. It can sell assets. So your trust system now owns all of your assets. So if someone sues you, you have no liability. I learned from a very, very wealthy person a while back that true wealth has zero ownership. It's about stewardship. It's about control. It's about what can I drive actions of, what can I influence, what can I control. Because if I can control an asset and I don't have to own it, now I have no liability. I have tax advantages if you holler at your boy, because I'm doing it different. Me and my team are doing it different. So with that, I'll pass it back to you.
Earl, right before I had my last client meeting, I was meeting with one of the big dogs here in town. And we were talking about just that exact thing, because I was getting information on how to get a leased car under my business, because I haven't done that before. And he was asking me about if the lease route made the most sense. And for what I'm doing, yes. Because there's a lot of people that, they may want to put different assets under their business so that they don't have to attach their credit to it. And that's the way that want to like circumvent the game. And it's like, that's not my intent. The reality is Bullseye Consulting will be its own self-sustaining, functioning entity here in Colorado Springs when I'm not here. So why would I have the vehicle under me personally when it's a company asset that is going to be here when I'm not? Like, I don't, and we had a whole kind of conversation about some of the misnomers out there, the distractions that, so growing up, hearing the idea of being a hustler, like, yeah, I aspire to be that in a way that would preserve my life when I went home to my dad.
That part. The hustler's spirit, the hustler's ambition, not a street hustler.
But I had to figure that was the thing. But the hustle thing though, like, was like conditioned as something like you got to get it, got to figure it out, and that's a thing that's been conditioned into too many of our folks, where there's a like Jeezy, like the standing ovation for the hustler, and it's like the hustle lacks intentionality, which in turn results in cycles of the same thing.
Oh, can I hop in there? I love what you just said there, that the hustle lacks intentionality. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to people, whether it's the athletes that train with me in the gym, some of my clients or some of my brokers that are learning how to build a book of business, I'm like, do you know why we set goals? And they're like, so I can be better and this and that. Yes, yes. But do you know why we set goals? What's the significance? It's because it gives suffering meaning. If you don't have a goal and you're just hustling non-stop, that's how you drain your soul, and that's how you have a mental breakdown. When you have a goal, you're saying, I'm sacrificing for this period of time so I can get this thing done, and this thing is highly significant to me and my family and my community. That's it. I'll pass it right back to you.
Yes, 100%. So when we are in that cycle of just hustling to make it to the next opportunity, everything that you mentioned as far as having the investment account set up when they were 30 years old and they now 70, so they got 300K sitting to the side and they got an investment property over here and this, that, and the third. So they're still slaves to their business, but it has produced those things because along the way, they were not just hustling. There was some intentionality, some form of intentionality. And
they were planting some seeds.
And what it is that they were doing. So when we continue in this cycle of hustling by any means, getting it out the mud and championing that as the thing that we need to be doing as a people, we remain in the mud, running in place, and never get to the space of talking about having 300K sitting in an account that we ain't even thinking about touching.
Right. That's for the grandkids. They don't need that money to live. That's just an account. You know what I mean? And with what you're saying, that's where we need to get people, that intentionality where every job has a dollar. Because I think people that are slaves to money are extremely dissatisfied and dissolute. People who make money, their slaves, experience freedom, leverage, and impact. I'd rather be on that side, you know, and it's funny you say that, you know. I used to say getting it out of the mud like 15, 20 years ago because my dad's from Arkansas, my mom's side's Mississippi, Alabama, and people would always talk about getting it out the dirt. I'm like, man, sometimes it's raining. Sometimes you got to get it out the mud. And it's not something that I just, you know, I heard an old head say it, and I used to run with it. And then, you know, every trap rapper the past 8 years gotta, yeah, get it out the mud. Yeah. And it's like, okay, cool. So you got it out the mud. Now you're taking it to the clouds? Are you taking it to the river? What are you doing with it that you got out the mud? Can you grow that? Can you sell that? Can you systematize it? It's kind of like, you know, social media. Everybody wants more followers, but where are you taking us? Where am I following you?
Big facts.
We're not doing this so we can sound smart, so we can pat each other on the back and pat ourselves on the back. It's so we can give people quality information that they can make actionable. And so that we can start to open up their mind to moving and thinking differently about the world around them. Because we know that once a mind is stretched, it can never go back.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here. Did you catch Market Monday?
Yeah. Like Rashad said, over this next 3 years, if those who are disciplined are going to run up a ridiculous bag. I'm talking generational, family changing. Yeah, and I will be on that side of things. I tell you that because I'm seeing what's going on. I'm paying attention. And again, like we can get emotional about shit that we can't control, or we can get intentional about leveraging the opportunities that arise. And
Let's go.
I'm on that.
Yeah, because, information changes situations through implementation. I didn't hear the word emotions in any of that. And one of the things that made me laugh over the last 12 years, I've always said the person that our current president is, the person that he reminds me most of is Suge Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone would just laugh at me. I'm like, dog, he just Suge Knight stuff. He just rolls in. He's like, oh, you didn't vote for me. You voted for me. I'm taking this. I'm taking that. You want help in the UK, in the Ukraine? Excuse me, not the UK. In the Ukraine, you're going to have to come up with some of the mineral rights. It's so mafioso. And, Rashad's point echoes pretty much what I've been saying. Right or wrong, he took the opportunity to work as like a super CEO, where he's like, look, you're a Fortune 500 CEO. You got to bow down and kiss the rings. If you don't work in accordance with me, good luck going against me. You're a country that doesn't like me, but you depend on us. Guess what? Get bent. So it's probably the first time we've ever seen the country ran as a straight up corporation.
Yo,
and
on some Beanie Siegel get down to lay down type shit.
Yeah, straight up.
Broad
Straight
Street
up.
Bully.
Straight up like beans.
Broad
Get down
Street
or lay
Bully.
down.
Straight up. Yeah.
So just like you said, it does create so many opportunities. So I know a lot of people are very fearful about jobs that are going to be lost, and the head of the labor board statistics was let go.
Bro, and the dude that got nominated said, we just gonna put the reporting on pause.
Yeah, it's on pause indefinitely. So we're not gonna know job reports anymore.
What a time to be alive, bro. What a time to be alive. Like, who needs comedy or not comedy? Who needs
satire?
There you go, satire. When this is reality.
It's kind of crazy, and I'm a registered independent, so I get to make fun of everybody, and then I get made fun of, because that's the nature of it. But when I think about our last president as well, we were in a recession, and they changed the definition of recession to be like, no, we're not. Oopsies, mulligan.
Because of the unemployment rate. Because of the unemployment rate.
Yep.
Now, what the unemployment rate don't talk about, though, is, for one, the quality of the jobs. So when you got someone, like, the market is so good that folks don't just have one job, they have two or three.
Right.
How is that good?
Right.
To survive. Right.
I had to explain that to one of my clients.
They're not
because
they're not working two or three jobs to stunt. They are working 2 to 3 jobs to survive.
Yes.
Right? And this is the market that we're talking about is so great.
Right.
And
we're talking about gig work on top of having a traditional 40-hour-a-week job. And then also having our favorite word, a hustle. It's like, yeah, I work for this company. Yeah, they're a Fortune 500 company. I also drive Uber. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm a barber.
Right.
That's the reality for a lot of people. I had one of my clients who's very, very right-leaning. He's like, look at how strong the economy is. Look how many people are working. And I was like, well, I would think that if each person has to have 2 to 3 jobs, because it's not like if we look at these different disclosures, it's amazing how much information is available to us. Like FDIC.gov. It's one of my favorite things to look at because I'm a nerd. And ever since the Big Short happened, every single bank that has FDIC funding, they have to disclose all of their assets quarterly. A lot of them put it up there monthly. So you get to see where the money is, and you get to see all these reports, and then you get to see what the average savings account has in it. I used to use that report a lot to show people the value of life insurance because, you know, cash value life insurance, it's the number one asset that banks and hedge funds buy. That's a whole nother conversation on why they put their money there before gold, silver, stocks, even their own stock. It's crazy. But when we look at this data and we see that the average bank account has less than $500, and then we look at the average brokerage account for an American, and we see that if they are 60 or 65, the average account has $150,000. Meaning if they retired right now and they're following the 4% rule, we're talking about people trying to live off of 4% of $150,000. So basically, they're trying to live on $10,000 a year if we follow the 4% rule. There's other stuff we can do. There's annuities. There's other assets we could stack on top of each other and maybe get 8. But, my brother, so if savings doesn't have money, investment accounts don't have money, people aren't buying new real estate or gold, and then people are in credit card debt and student loan debt, I would probably say we're not in a great economy. I don't know. Maybe I missed something.
Bro, and the other side of the unemployment conversation is the labor participation rate, which is not even an afterthought. Like, we don't even think about the labor. And it's like, bro, when you look at the amount of folks able-bodied and of working age, there are a bunch of job roles in the United States that have not been filled for a very long time. And we have a labor participation rate that it don't make sense. The amount of people that are not engaged in the job market at all. It doesn't make sense, but it speaks to the culture and the society that we have as Americans. Like, it's so valuable to leave this country and to understand what it really means, what this country really means, and like what it's founded on and all of those things. Like the amount of people that we have that are not in the game, and but we have a bustling economy. How?
Right. I've always thought it was a crazy thing that once someone hasn't found a job in their field, you know, they're going to correct us in the chat if I'm wrong on this. I believe it's 18 months. At 18 months, if you haven't found a job in your field, you don't count as unemployed anymore. They take you out of the pool.
Yep. Yeah. So it's as long as you're receiving unemployment, and you only qualify for unemployment for a period of time. And once you're no longer receiving unemployment, then you're no longer counted. So if you're applying for unemployment, then you're counted. And if you're receiving unemployment, then you're counted. But if you are not applying and have been aged out of unemployment, you don't count. When we talk about labor participation rate, that's the non-participants. You go into that pool. And we don't talk about that percentage of people and why it's so large. We don't talk about that.
Or the effects that it has. You know, I got to meet a interesting person that's on the board for Colorado Springs Police Department, and their husband, so it's 2 gentlemen, and their husband is on the force. And what they do is they try to work to make sure the citizens are treated right and there's not overstep by law enforcement, but also to make sure that law enforcement has what they need to do their job. You don't have someone working 60, 70 hours a week, working all kinds of crazy shifts, and then expect them to perform at a high level. That's putting the officer at a disadvantage as well. And one of the interesting things that we talked about was social programs and social benefits, which is the last thing I thought I would be talking to, you know, the significant other of a police officer. But talking about creating more social programs because it is the easiest way to prevent crime. Because, when we think about it, police officers police crime. So they're coming back and they're cleaning up something after it already happened. Every once in a while, they get on the scene while something has happened. Police officers don't prevent crime. I mean, they can show force, and that definitely helps, having them drive around and do that sort of thing. But, people being gainfully employed prevents crime. People being able to afford food, to be able to afford their housing, to be able to afford gas, all these different metrics that mean it's not stress on someone's mind also prevent crime. And on the other side, we tend to see less situations where officers are working less compliantly when they're rested and they're able to have happy relationships with their significant others because they're not working 60, 70 hours a week. That's how you get divorced. That's how you get a drinking problem. And it's like, oh, now we have someone that's divorced and a drinking problem with a ton of power.
Or put the barrel of a pistol in one's own mouth, or their family and then them. Like,
right.
The types of things that transpire from that. And we hear about it all too often.
Right, because that is such a stressful job. It's crazy. And I get how it's almost like a lose-lose. Even when you're the best officer, society's going to look at you a certain kind of way. Well, with that, brother, I feel like, we rocked out our very first one.
Right.
Do you have any closing comments? I mean, besides, anything that we talked about here today was for educational purposes only, until you hire him or he hires or you hire me. We are not your professional consultants. I am not your tax service guy. I'm not your trust strategist, nor am I your financial advisor. Okay, so please do your own research. Reach out to other professionals. We're not liable for you guys.
Bars.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to explore, the asset class with you today, my brother, and for all our students. So tune in next week, and we're going to come with more fire.